People don't understand how markets function. I think that's the real problem. And they call these things emotionally rather than quantitatively. And markets they function like a pendulum, and it goes, you know, to an extreme on one side, and the weight brings it back the other way. And they just don't understand that. That
The Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever. The Financial Survival Network.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Gary Lutz, and Martin Armstrong is back with us. We're going to be talking about Iran. We're going to be talking about his prior call on Ukraine, what that is about, and once again, the book, The World According to Martin Armstrong, Conversations with the Master Forecaster. It's selling amazing. Over 1,800 copies have sold in one form or another. And the link to purchase the book is in the show notes to this interview. And you'll find it. Just click the description box. Martin, it's great to have you on. And I can't tell you how honored I am to have put this book out. I mean, to me, the best forecast you made maybe wasn't the most precise, was back in 2018 when you said, Kerry, the Dow is going to 45,000 between, I think, the end of 22 and 24. I believe the date was December 14th, 24. It hit 45,000. And nobody, but no one else out there made a call anywhere near to that. Yeah, some people said, yeah, the market's going up and I think it's going to go higher, but nobody made the precise call that you made. And, so many people asked me, how did you do it? How did you make that call? What, what did the tea leaves tell you?
our computer's just been very, very accurate. I mean, you can look. That's why they did a documentary on me, The Forecaster. They're doing a sequel, and now they're doing a Hollywood film on it. I mean, 87, for example, the computer gave the very day of the crash, and I came out that day, and even Larry Edelson, he was shocked. He came out as the market's crashing, say, okay, fine, here's the low, and the market's going to go back and make new highs. And as Larry says, everybody thought I was crazy. Yeah, he's in it, and it does. Same thing. Barron's wrote, I think it was 2009. They thought it was a joke. Here Armstrong says, this is the low and it's going to make new highs. I was Barron's. They put it out, makes new highs. People don't understand how markets function. I think that's the real problem. And they call these things emotionally rather than quantitatively. And markets they function like a pendulum, and it goes, you know, to an extreme on one side, and the weight brings it back the other way. And they just don't understand that. Like when I was called into the Brady Commission in '87, I told them, I said, initially they said, "Oh, we're going to find the guy that shorted this market, pushed it down, blah blah blah," right?
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you realize that every investigation since 1907 started the same way?" I said, "Don't you understand how markets function? It's not some giant short. That's never going to happen. What it is, you get everybody in on one side, something happens, they try to get out and they can't. And you call the broker and he says, no bid. Then it goes down 1,000 points. You know, um, I've seen it so many times. Japan, Russia collapsed, 98. It's always the same thing. Um, Back in '85, it was, the low in gold. It, I had Merrill Lynch call me and said, "Look, we will pay you your full hourly rate from the time you get on a plane to the time you return to teach this guy how to trade." And I said, "Who the hell is this?" 'Cause it was all the way over in Geneva, and he lost $25 million on one day in gold.
Wow.
And he was short, and he made the low. Basically, he was the short that had to get out. And so I've seen it so many times. I mean, I was doing a conference in Tokyo. It was for institutions only, and this guy bribed the hotel to get in. He came up to me and he apologized, and he said that he just had to talk to me. I said, "What was so urgent?" And he brought $50 million on the Japanese stock market the very day of the high.
Hmm.
And what I found interesting was he was in his late 60s, and this was the first time he ever invested.
Wow.
Eh, And I said, "What made you buy it?" He actually bought the high. And he said the brokers had called him for 7 years and kept saying, "Look, the Nikkei goes up 5% every January." And he bought it the last day of December. He made the high and lost, 40% of his 50 million bucks.
Sounds like
I've
me.
seen it. I've seen it so many times. What happens is everybody gets caught up on one side. Bullish, bearish, doesn't matter. And uh, then some news happens or whatever it is, and some people start to take profit, and that makes the market go down or up from shorts or whatever. And then next thing you know, you get in there and there's just no bid. When Russia collapsed in '98, all right, all the long term capital management, all the banks, the hedge funds, they're all in the same trade. They tried to get out, they couldn't. So what happened? That turned into a massive liquidity crisis. They start selling everything else from stocks and currencies, any other position they had to raise money to cover the losses in Russia.
Hmm.
And so that became a huge, you know, um, liquidity crisis. And that's when the Fed had to step in and actually bail out long term capital management. It was a hedge fund, not a bank. Um, but it's always the same thing, and that's what we have to understand. And I think the best way to visualize this, it's a pendulum. It swings to one extreme, and then its own weight brings it back the other way. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about up or down or whatever. Then you have the politicians who don't understand anything, and the market goes down, and then they want to outlaw short selling when the short is the only one that has the courage to buy in a panic.
Yeah.
Uh, So go ahead, eliminate him, and then watch what you're gonna go down another 1,000 points. It's
Amazing.
they just don't understand it. So we get to these extremes back and forth, and um, this is it. I mean, gold, the same thing. I said, look, gold's going to go up. Eventually, we're going to look at around the 5,000 level. Um, you just have to go to these extremes. And when you get to that extreme, then it reverses. But it doesn't
Hmm.
matter what market you're looking at. Um, on our system, we develop what is called, we call it the Global Market Watch. And it has a comment for every market in the world there. But underneath the comment, it has the number. And that number is the pattern. And what I've seen is that the theory I had was, okay, fine, let the computer catalog all the patterns. and it will find the same pattern in different markets because
Mhm.
the commonality is human nature. It doesn't matter what the instrument is. So they all trade the same.
All right. So let's talk about first Ukraine call. That was highly controversial. Basically, you said the computer's saying it's pretty much gonna disappear. Now, I don't know what that means as a country or as a separate country. What do you think that means?
Look, people think that, like I'm anti Ukraine, and it's exactly the opposite. I'm for the Ukrainian people. I had two employees there in Ukraine, one in Kiev and one in Donetsk. Um, it is the neocons that are pushing war all the time. You had a peace deal, and Boris Johnson hops on the plane, goes over to Kiev, and tells Zelensky he's not allowed to sign it. I mean, that even made the front page of Pravda. Look, they've done the same thing in Romania. They Europe, the EU is perfectly willing to sacrifice all the Eastern Europeans to reduce Russia. All right. They want to conquer Russia, period. Russia's got $75 trillion worth of natural resources. It's the richest country in the world. Hitler tried to do it. Napoleon tried to do it. And I mean, even Sweden tried to do it back, with, Peter the Great. Um, and most people don't realize that Russia was in 1917 had the world's largest gold reserves. And somebody hid them. They don't know where they're at. They didn't want the Bolsheviks to get them. And so the rumor is that they've been buried in a forest or dropped to the bottom of a lake or something. But
Mhm.
would probably make a movie like The Knights Templar, trying to find it. But this is their agenda. They don't care. I mean, when Zelensky ran for office, he promised peace. And you can Google it. Russia was, you know, favoring him. The death toll was 130,000. It's now over 1.2 million. And what are they fighting for? The Donbass is historically Russian. Even Brezhnev was born there.
Right.
Right. Um, and forget all the propaganda from the mainstream, which is just put out by the neocons. Look at the timeline. We orchestrated the 2014 revolution. Victoria Nuland was there handing out sandwiches. And you had John McCain on the stage saying, overthrow your government, we're with you. All right. And as soon as they did, Victoria Nuland, and there was even a tape that that got leaked out where she said, F the EU, and they stuck in their own people and immediately instructed them to start the civil war and attack the Donbass.
Insane.
So, I
So
mean, look, they don't care about the Ukrainian people. Uh, you know, this is, I don't know what's wrong with these people. We're seeing the same thing. You got Lindsey Graham saying, go ahead and destroy all of Iran. I mean, there's 90 million people there. I don't know what it is with these. They have no respect for human life whatsoever. They just don't. Um, so Iran is just another issue, but they're all connected. They've been orchestrating these things for quite some time. The computer is showing that Ukraine, they will fight. The West is basically telling them to keep fighting until there's no Ukrainian left. Uh, Over 8 million have fled the country. Our two employees are in Berlin now. Um, and nobody wants to go back.
yeah, those
So
left behind. so many people in Florida from Ukraine. It's amazing. Yeah, it's becoming like little Kiev down in Dade County, Miami-Dade County. So
Yeah,
that's
look,
uh,
it's I know I bumped into a bunch of them myself. It's this is what you're looking at, and I don't see Ukraine surviving. They had, you know, look, they were independent. All right, that was it. I mean, just because Yanukovych was pro Russian versus EU, they had to overthrow the government and then and deliberately use this to start a war.
mhm,
Um,
madness,
and
complete
you
madness.
get the same thing going on with Iran. You had Tulsi Gabbard basically testify before Congress and say that they're about 18 months away from getting a nuclear bomb, and and then all of a sudden it's urgent. We got to do it right now. Um, I
Yeah.
mean, the problem with this stuff is Iran does have supersonic missiles. The only way, they claim that they had, domestic development of them, etc. But most intelligent it points to, that they were assisted by Russia. China gets about 80% of all the oil from Iran. Right. So if you take out Iran, and this is not about nuclear weapons, all right. This is regime change again.
Mhm.
They decapitated basically uh, the top leaders in the government, and they wanted to even kill you know, the supreme leader. Trump said no on that
Mhm.
one. But I mean, this is, you know, wasn't really just the nuclear stuff. I mean, they know that Israel could not destroy that. It's too deep. They don't have the missiles to do that. All right, that takes the U.S. to do it, and they asked the U.S. to step in. But the other thing was basically to for regime change,
Mhm.
and you have to question here, given their contacts with Russia and China. Um, is it just another neocon ploy to get us involved in another endless war? Um, and look, Netanyahu went. Many people don't realize, but he went to school in Cheltenham, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
He grew up there and visited the family of Bill Kristol, whose father Irving started the whole neocon movement.
And Bill is still a member, and Bill was getting millions of dollars, his foundation, from USAID.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so Netanyahu is part of the neocon movement. All right. His popularity in Israel as of June of last year, is the last time I looked at it, was down to 29%. So he doesn't have the overwhelming majority of Israeli people behind him either. So it's kind of like Zelensky, you know. Um, and Zelensky just won't have elections because he knows he would lose. Um, so I mean, in all honesty, I think Trump has been played. Um, he was against the neocons domestically, like John Bolton, etc., Victoria Nuland. I don't think he realized that just because Netanyahu or Bibi is the head of Israel, that's different. But he's part of the same crew. Um, so
The World
it
War
just
III.
seems
We looking at World War III here, or are we going to pull back from the precipice?
Now, look, uh, the computer is showing volatility around this globally. So it doesn't indicate that we're looking at something isolated that's just going to stay with Iran and Israel. Um, Israel's trying to get the U.S. involved, and at the same time, um, I am skeptical whether Russia and China would allow Iran to just simply completely fall apart. Um, it's really, we're pushing this up against the edge again. Uh, Sources that I have been saying that um, Zelensky was conspiring with the Brits to use an old Soviet torpedo to sink an American ship to blame it on Russia.
Mhm.
Uh, and the same thing, in with Iran. Uh, False flags have been used to start wars all the time.
Yeah.
Hitler's, set fire to the Reichstag, you know, to blame communists, which happened to be, they thought going after the Jews was that it was sold more of a, that you had Lenin and Trotsky were Jewish. So communism was this Jewish conspiracy. And that's how they kind of like started it, and then it's like, the bankers were the Jews, and then like you had Crystal Knock, etc. But it started and even in Ukraine, they were basically saying that communism was this Jewish conspiracy. That's where it kind of how they sold it. Um, and that's why he blamed the Reichstag fire on the communist. So you can look on Wikipedia. There's, Operation Northwoods. Same thing. They proposed to Kennedy to kill Americans and blame it on Cuba to justify an invasion there. And he rejected it. So they probably took him out, as all the evidence is suggesting. The CIA took him out because he wouldn't go into Vietnam. Um, So we just have to understand that, and there is no weapons of mass destruction. You can Google it, and you'll see that there were um, investigations that FDR couldn't get us into World War II, and so he set things up against the Japanese for Pearl Harbor, and then they found out that we had, broken their code and knew about it in advance.
Yes.
And I put on my site just 2 days before. And it was the Honolulu Tribune said we're going to be attacked on the weekend.
Shock. So, all right.
And there was a big Senate investigation on it. So obviously the conspiracy theories were good enough to get a Senate investigation going. And the conclusion was, well, we're not entirely sure that FDR knew we were going to be attacked in advance.
All right. So, you still adhering to your call for 2032? I think Dow 62,000.
Yeah, look, all I can say is that the more you keep um, this crate poking the dragon on one side and the bear on the other side. I mean, this is not going to end well. Um,
Never does.
but no, I mean, look, wars are, you know, everybody always starts, they think, oh, they're going to win and it's going to be short, sweet, and to the point. They never are.
And, welcome us as liberators in the streets, right? Of the Tehran of Baghdad, right?
My concern is that the computer basically does show World War III, and that it's engulfing everything. And I can't explain it, but it does seem as though there are contagions. Um, I mean, and go. I mean, for example, Rome overthrew its king in 509 BC. Within a few months, Athens overthrows its tyrant. Democracy's born. Um, American Revolution. George Washington's being sworn in 1789. The French go, "Oh, that's a good idea," and they're over. The French Revolution starts. Um, I mean, these things are common. You have Tiananmen Square within basically, what was it, 26 weeks, the Berlin Wall falls. It's and what we're seeing right now is kind of alarming to me. You're even seeing wherever there were tensions historically between one group and another, they all seem to be rising up again. Um, we gave a handful of jets to Greece, and they even made a statement. They made the front pages over there. Oh, now we can launch a surprise attack on Turkey. I mean, that's a dispute between the two of them been going on since Alexander the Great. know,
Yeah.
um, it's I mean, we have offices over in Thailand, and all of a sudden, Thailand is in a border dispute with Cambodia, India, and Pakistan. I mean, everywhere you go, um, Taiwan, North Korea versus the South, and Japan. It is maybe the only place that doesn't seem to be in complete chaos right now is maybe in Africa and South America. That's about it.
Give
Um,
it time.
yeah, just give them time. That's I don't know how to describe it other than it seems to be like a contagion. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, they pissed me off a long time ago. Let's go get them. I don't know. You had the former chairman of Germany, Bismarck, in 1888. He forecasted that Europe would be in a major war, and he said it's going to come from the Balkans. It was, premature. In 1914, the Serb killed an Austrian heir to the throne, the Archduke, and boom, you get World War Three. World War One. So I mean, it's just, I mean, that area is, look, as I said, we had employees in Ukraine, one from Kiev. We had a conference in Greece, and she refused to fly back the fastest way simply because it had a stopover in Moscow. Um, the hatred there between Ukrainians and Russians it's just systemic. Same thing in the Middle East. I mean, how do you solve this when you're talking about religious disputes?
Yeah.
Uh, it's not an economic thing. All right, fine. I'll give you this. You give me that, whatever. Ireland is still split, North versus South between Protestant and Catholic. Go to England, and they still call a Catholic a pape, and that's from the Civil War, 1649. Um,
Tribal.
with religion, I don't know if there is any solution. I know, honestly, I just don't know.
Couldn't agree with you more. Well, I think we'll leave it at that, and just everybody get the book, The World According to Martin Armstrong. A lot of these forecasts are in there. A lot of forecasts that have come true are in there as well. Finally, gold and silver. So you think gold 5,000, silver just broke $37. Where is silver heading?
Yeah, I mean, look, silver will eventually test the $50 level too. Um, the thing to understand about precious metals is that they do not go up with inflation. That is propaganda, been sold around for a long time. They go up with geopolitical concerns. That's why you see them rising. Um, you may see gold break out to the upside going into July. mainly because this war with Iran does not look like it's going to be settled. It looks more like it's going to be prolonged. Um,
Right.
so it's, just be prepared. But I would say that that's what you're really looking at. Um, it the precious metals are a hedge against government. You don't know who's going to win in a war, so you basically go in that direction.
And we need all the hedges we can get now. Hey, platinum was under 1,000 for years. Now it's in the 1,200s. I know it's a tiny market. It's not really reflective of the other markets. There's industrial uses, catalytic converters. It, but historically, platinum always traded for more than gold. Are we going to see that again?
Uh, Maybe not because it is more on the industrial side, and most of your supply actually comes out of Russia.
Mhm.
Russia is actually the only country that even issued coins in platinum. Uh, and they were always the most expensive, though the highest denominations over and above gold. Um, but uh, look, with war expanding, um, and the real problem I should say about the Middle East
Mhm.
is that if this turns more into a religious dispute, all right, you have already sent an awful lot of people from this region, Syria, etc., into Europe. And it wasn't to assimilate. They have retained their distinct cultures, etc. And if this turns into more of a jihad, our computer is not looking very favorably on Europe. You're looking at a lot of civil unrest in most of the major cities.
Wow, amazing. All right. Well, we got the word directly from Martin Armstrong. Again, the book is The World According to Martin Armstrong, Conversations with the Master Forecaster. The link is in the description to buy the book. And like I said, we saw the phenomenal number now, considering I'm an independent publisher, self-published, no publishing house, no PR, no nothing, just the truth and the videos. So go buy it. If you got a question for Martin or myself, please shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Make sure you go to Martin's site, sign up for his notifications, his daily emails, armstrongeconomics.com. Martin, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Take care over there.